Hey everyone, and welcome to another new episode of Scope Red Pictures. My name is Danny, of course, and today I had this like crazy conversation at work about what would be my top five video game systems of all time. And the funny thing is, as I can actually name my top five, and two of them will shock people, maybe, since if most of you have been following my shows, you know that I am a huge Nintendo and Sega fan. So those are the only two brands that you'll see in my top list. I do not have any Sony, Microsoft, and I'm not a PC guy at all. So let's get on with number five. We'll do a countdown. Number five, my favorite system of all time is actually a portable system, and that is the Game Boy Advance. Now, not the Game Boy Advance SP that folds, I mean the original Game Boy Advance that was long. I have my white one, which was amazing. I've always been huge into portable gaming, as you guys know, and the Game Boy Advance was always that one thing that I always had with me. And whether it be the original Game Boy, the Game Boy Color, or my Game Boy Advance, that was the best. I loved it because it was like having a mini Super NES. And most of you might be thinking why I didn't put SNES as on this list is because the Game Boy was more. I was at an age where I could understand games a lot more, and I was always out. So it was one of those things where I would be traveling. My Game Boy Advance was always with me, and I loved that thing so much. And even to this day, I still like it better than the Game Boy Advance SP. I don't care for the clamshell designs. I like just having a main system with the screen, buttons, and you're good to go. And that was the first time we got trigger buttons on our handheld Game Boys. So that was an awesome achievement. One of my favorites, and that takes number five. Number four is a little shocking for those like most of you who have watched or work with me or talk with me or whatever. I just received something yesterday. If you saw my episode, I received the package that I bought, and coming in at number five is the Virtual Boy. Now, I do not know how this system failed. Sure, there are a few things that I would have changed with the console, but in my personal opinion, I think that if it was done right, if it was brought out at a advanced time compared to coming out in 1994, I think that at that time gamers were not ready for that type of gaming, which kind of led to its downfall. And at that time, people were more friendly and played together. You had to go to each other's house and such, and you couldn't do that with the Virtual Boy. It was a solo play experience, and I think that really hurt it. Though I do lay most of the blame on the Nintendo president at the time and the lack of games. It was a rush system, if most of you didn't know. They were trying to keep the focus on Nintendo when Sega Saturn and PlayStation first entered into the gaming market. So because of the N64 being a system that was coming out later in the next 2 years, Nintendo needed something other than the Super NES and the Game Boy to stay in people's minds. So the Virtual Boy was supposed to be a successor to the Game Boy, which was another reason why I think it failed. I don't think it should have copied or tried to be the next Game Boy. It should have been a system all on its own. And I only have two games so far. I have Jack Rose and Mario Tennis, Mario's Tennis. But I love the controller. I think the controller is probably one of the best controllers I played on. I love the design of the unit. I love that it's futuristic. And most people hate it, but I love the art style, the black and red. It's very basic yet fun. And like most people who started with the Game Boy, they know that it was always going to have those two different colors. The Game Boy had the green and black, and the Virtual Boy with the red and black. And I think the red and black works so much better on a console. I wish that the Game Boy Color, the original Game Boy, I wish that the original Game Boy had a different color than that lightish green and black. But yeah, I've been playing the system for 12 hours. I haven't had my eyes strained. I am not having any seizures. I think that at that time, people were very afraid of certain things that they didn't understand, or certain things that have not been very around at that time. And I think that was one of the reasons why it didn't succeed when it really should have. And I'm very happy. I paid $251 Canadian for my system. It is mint. I've never seen such a mint system, even though the ad did not clarify that it was in mint professional quality, but I'm happy it is. And it does take fourth place, even though there's only 14 games US wide and 22 worldwide. It doesn't bother me because I will keep enjoying those games over and over again, and I love Jack Brothers. I think that might be my favorite game of all time. It was just so much fun. I wish it was longer, but it was just so much fun. And the stereoscopic 3D that inspired the 3DS was so ahead at its time. And the technology for a 1994 product is just as good as most of the virtual reality goggles or the 3D goggles you use when you go to theaters. Um, yeah, that takes my fourth place. I'll leave it there. We'll agree to disagree. Number 3 is a home console, and it is codenamed Dolphin. And if you guys don't know what that is, it is the Nintendo GameCube. Now, I was a huge fan of GameCube. I love the design. I love that it had its own proprietary media, so that hackers and counterfeits could not be easily made. Just the shape of it and the handle really makes it one of those systems that was different compared to Xbox and to PlayStation 2. And I like that. And the one thing that I like that Nintendo always stayed true on is keeping a video game system, only playing video games. We have Xbox One right now, and PS4, who are just, it's just too much on the on other stuff. You got Blu-ray, you got the media, you got all that stuff. Not that the Wii U didn't have Netflix, which I used, of course, but I thought that at the time a video game system should have been just about video games. And even now, I still think the same thing. I like that my Switch doesn't have any of those apps, because if that had the apps, I'd spend more time on that than actually playing my video games. So having that just completely be a video game system was amazing. And there were so many amazing games for the GameCube. Super Mario Sunshine, amazing. Metroid Prime series, amazing. Luigi Mansion was my first title for the system, and even to this day, I still replay it. I have my whole video game collection on my GameCube, and it is one of those systems that I still go back to this day and play. And I loved how, compared to PlayStation 2, where you had to buy a multi-tap to play multiplayer games, the GameCube had the built-in four-player sockets. So you and your friends could still come over, still play all your amazing games together, and did not need to get any accessories or peripherals for it. And I loved, especially when being such a huge handheld guy, that the attachment to play the Game Boy Advance games came out, which was perfect because I always had a whole bunch and always felt like playing a Super Nintendo, even though I didn't have one at that time. I sold it off to get the new systems. But that year, I remember getting the GameCube and just taking it over and showing my cousins that I was so proud to have a new Nintendo console that was just as powerful or more powerful than PS2 and close to the power of Xbox. and just with all the amazing games. That was the last system that we had such a high third-party support up until now with the Switch. Um, and the controller, Wavebird, was the first um, wireless controller that inspired all the new ones up to now, and it is still one of the best controllers ever made. Though the C stick is not the best, but it does get the job done. Next up, number 2. This one is one that, like the Virtual Boy, doesn't have such a huge library, but it's not about the library, it's about the good games about it that the system had. And it had a troubled start and finish. I was late buying it, but I'm so proud that I did. I got it for my birthday, and it was the system that I played the most out of, and it is just awesome because there's so many arcade titles for it. I love the arcade, and we don't have any more here in London, but hopefully someday soon. And number 2 is the Sega Dreamcast. Now, I loved that system and the swirl. The swirl is what got me. And just amazing games. I've always been a huge Sonic fan. Sonic Adventure is still the best ever 3D Sonic title that Sega has ever created. And I love that game so much. I love the controller of the Dreamcast. It is weird, it is different, and it looks like it just came out of a sci-fi movie. Dreamcast was one of those systems that had a hard time with piracy and lack of games, and it came out at the time where PS2 was taken off. It came in a little too late, and it had trouble in the marketplace. First of all, it was pricey, and it couldn't do as much as the PS2 did for, I believe it was $100 cheaper. But Sega Dreamcast will always have that highest thing in my heart. I still play it to this day. Mine's mint condition. I kept that baby nice and mint. And I only have 14 games for the system, but there are 14 amazing games. And like I said, very arcade games. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat Gold is one of my favorites. I have the Mario Party ripoff with Sonic Shuffle, which is another amazing fun game to play. There's House of the Dead 2, amazing with my light gun. There are so many good titles if you gave it a chance. And if you do find it, I suggest you do pick one up. It is an amazing console. You'll have lots of fun on it. Number 1, and this will shock people because a lot of people are thinking it's going to be the SNES, the NES, the Nintendo 64, or some of the past Sega systems. But this one is really new. It has not passed a year yet. It is coming up soon though. Nintendo Switch is my number 1 favorite console of all time. I love it because it's both portable and it's home console. We finally have third-party support, which is amazing. And just in this first year alone, we've had so many amazing games come out for the system. Super Mario, Legend of Zelda, there's Splatoon 2, and so many countless others. And I've spent more time on my Switch than any other console that I've owned, whether it be handheld or console. And I think the future is very bright for Nintendo and the Switch. Like I said yesterday, I know more of you have bought Switches, more of my friends have bought them. And it's just a great sign when we see Nintendo Directs bringing out third-party support. We have Doom, we have, what's it called? We have so many others coming out. And Skyrim is the one I was trying to get there for a second. Skyrim, and so many other games. And I'm so happy that Nintendo is finally found a president who knows how to market a system, knows what people want, and is striving toward making the future bright for Nintendo. And that's my top 5 favorite, guys. What's your top 5 favorites? If you want to just leave it down in the comments, let me know which ones you agree on, disagree on. And hope you guys have a great day. And thanks for watching my show. I'll see you soon.